Broadcasting from Cincinnati, you're listening to the Ringside Reporter podcast. All the news from the world of boxing right here.
Well, I'm talking to you the way I want to talk to you.
Now, here's your host, Eric Lorda.
All right, happy Easter, everyone. We are live. Welcome to the Ringside Reporter Show, where we talk about the latest boxing news. If it's related to boxing, we'll talk about it here. My name is Eric Lorda, and I'm here with my co-host, Joe Habib. We got a great show for you today, and if you want to call in, 323-870-3857. Let's get it started. Amazon Prime pay-per-view. Sebastian Fundora versus Tim Tszyu. And I'll tell you what, I didn't see it coming. I don't think most people did either. Sebastian Fundora shocks the world, beats Tim Tszyu by a split decision, 116-112 for both. Two judges had it 116-112 for each fighter, and then the other judge had it 115-113 for Fundora, who wins the title. I had the fight 115-113 for Fundora also. You know, to me, it was a good fight, man. Tszyu was in control for the first two rounds, but he ran into an elbow from Fundora. It was completely accidental. I mean, he actually moved into the elbow. From that point on, it was like a dogfight. Fundora is very smart. He used his jab for one of the first times ever. We've been saying this forever, man. When you watch Fundora fight, he's got is 6'6", 154, right? 6'6". He can make every fight simple. Is just uses that jab. And he says he doesn't like to use a jab. He likes to get in there and mix it up and everything. Listen, man. This was the best I've seen Fundora look. I thought that Fundora had a great game plan here, especially once that cut opened, is just jab him to death, man. And that's exactly what he did. That jab started everything off. It kept Tszyu off balance. It kept Tszyu at bay. He was able to dictate the range with it. He controlled the distance. Just kept his jab active, man. Now in the second round, like I said, that cut on the top of his head, on top of Tszyu's head, was bleeding right into his eye. And you could tell right away it was affecting him throughout the fight. I actually, when you watch the first two rounds prior to that cut, it looked to me like Tszyu was going to KO him early. Tszyu caught him with a couple shots that really kind of, I think got his attention, got Fundora's attention, and it looked like he was shook maybe once or twice in those first two rounds. But that round changed everything. It really did. Tszyu was not able to game plan at all. He had blood coming in his eyes. So as he's trying to parry, the announcer even said, as he's trying to parry the jabs, blood's coming right in his eyes. He's trying to wipe his face and parry, do everything at once. And it was bad. And I thought, if you watch those first two rounds, I believe that Tszyu was going to beat this guy. Tszyu, he had it all his own way. And I don't think, if the cut never happened, I don't think Fundora is able to figure this guy out, because he was coming in on him at will. He was getting to him. He found the range. It looked like he was a little confused with the range at first, but he was getting more comfortable with it as the fight went on. But as soon as that cut happened, man, that changed everything. That changed the complexion of the fight right there. Beeb, give me your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I talked about this earlier. I actually did a video this morning. I just think that Tszyu's corner did him a monumental disservice by not pulling him out of that fight, at least at the end of the fourth round. I was immediately, when the cut happened, I said, there's no way the doctor is going to allow this fight to go on. That thing looked like a crater on the top of his head, how deep and wide it was, and where the location of that cut was. There was no way. With all due respect to Joe Goosen, he knows a lot more than I do, but I don't think there was any type of coagulant that was going to stop that bleeding because of how deep, not only deep, but how wide and long the circumference of that cut. It was a giant, so like a circle, like this big on the top of his freaking head. And there's no way. He was virtually fighting blindfolded because, as you said, you're constantly wiping the blood away with your glove from your eyes, and you can't parry shots like that. I don't care, this whole warrior thing and he wanted to continue. You don't let him continue. You go to the referee and say, I can't stop that cut. He can't see out of his eyes. He admitted he couldn't see. So how are you going to let a guy go out there fighting blindfolded? And again, this is not sour grapes. I'm not team Tim Tszyu, whatever. I'm not running interference for him. Fundora fought a great fight, right? He had a great game plan. And the game plan that he set forth for himself most certainly, regardless, would have given him the best opportunity to win that fight, cut or no cut. He fought a smart fight, and it looked like that he was going to fight a smart fight throughout, right? But the thing is you do not allow a fighter to go out in that condition and fight. I don't give a shit, warrior or no warrior. Oh, well, we thought that we could have caught him with something and got him out of there. Listen, again, this is not
that kind of mentality. Yeah,
no, that's not reality. This is a legitimate top 4 or 5, maybe arguably top 3 guy in the division, right? At least top 5. You're not going to beat him compromised like that. There's just no way. There's no way. And it's just mind-boggling to me how this fight was allowed to go on. And I want to go back to a fight that I compare this to. It's not identical, but there's a similarity here. When you go back and you remember that fight back in 2013 with Mikey Garcia and Orlando Salido, when Orlando Salido accidentally headbutts Mikey Garcia in the nose, and it was stated that he possibly broke his nose. That blood was flowing, going into his mouth, going into the back of his throat, whatever. He could barely breathe, and that's always a dangerous thing as well too. And it didn't look like the referee was gonna, I think they brought the doctor in, but the doctor gave him the okay to continue. But the corner said, hey, listen, we can't breathe. We're swallowing our own blood, whatever. And they stopped that fight because Robert Garcia, he stepped in, right? The team stepped in and said to the doctor, we can't go. And because it was an accidental foul that caused the damage, then the fight went to the cards and he won a technical decision. Fuck that. I mean, again, this whole, I don't want to go out like that. I want to be a warrior. This is a fucking business. There's money on the table that you lost. There was a Crawford fight on the table for you. There was an Errol Spence fight on the table for you if you decided I'm going to vacate the WBO title and I'm just going to defend my WBC title. Right? That was always an option, which is something I think Sebastian Fundora is going to do. He ain't fighting fucking Tim Tszyu next. He ain't fighting Crawford next. There's a reason why Spence was in that ring last night. There's a reason why Spence was sitting there ringside. There's a reason why Sebastian Fundora didn't take that WBO title to the post-fight press conference and only had that WBC belt. You might as well just freaking not even mail that WBO title out, Paco, because that thing is getting vacated. I'm letting you know right now. He is not fighting Crawford next. He is not fighting Tim Tszyu next. He is vacating that fucking belt, and he is fighting Errol Spence next for that WBC title. I can just tell you that right now.
There you go. Let's circle back here to let's go back to that cut, and let's talk about that corner, their responsibility in this, because I was kind of like you when that cut showed up in the in the second round, late second round. All right. So I was like, he's really cut, and they have to go 4 rounds. Tszyu clearly won the first 2 rounds with no problem. And then Fundora, I thought, won the next 2 rounds. Why not stop the fight at that point and go to a draw or a technical decision or go to the cards because you know it's going to be a draw on the cards? Why? I mean, why wasn't that even thought about? I mean, just given the fact that, like I said, blood's coming in his eyes, it's a dangerous situation for him. Rather than risk any more in this, why don't we pull why don't we pull it and say, hey, we'll do this again. We'll rematch because it's a technical draw now.
Well, I said that on Twitter too, and someone replies to the tweet, oh, well, Tim Tszyu doesn't go out like that. He wanted to win the honorable way and all this and that.
Stop it.
And I'm sitting there saying to myself, fuck what Tim Tszyu wants to do. You're the corner. Right. You have to save the fight from himself. There wasn't even there wasn't even a discussion in the corner.
No.
And
No.
then maybe Tim Tszyu thought that they were going to stop the cut. And we talked about this earlier when asked about,
Yeah, so let's talk about that. Yeah, this was in the post fight, man. So in the post fight, it goes even deeper, right? So the post fight, they asked Tim Tszyu, "Hey, did you, the announcers were saying they didn't think you guys had enough in the corner to stop that cut. You didn't have the right stuff in the corner to stop the cut." They asked Tim Tszyu, they said, "What were your thoughts? Do you have any comment on that?" He looks right at the camera, no comment.
So
I think that speaks volumes, because if somebody's on your, somebody is trashing a member of your team or saying they were ill prepared for something, if you don't think that was the case, listen, I'll take the blame. I'm the one that got cut. I did this, or no, it was just in a bad spot. I don't know that they really could have stopped it. They could have put a Band-Aid on it. They couldn't have stopped it, whatever he's going to say in that press conference. But to say no comment, that's a big deal. That is a big deal. And to me, that is just as much of an accusation as him saying, yes, they were ill prepared. That is, to me, it is almost the exact same thing, because you didn't defend your cornerman that you hired, that you brought with you. I think that's a big deal. That's a huge deal.
And to your point, he may have continued with the intention and thought process that, these guys are going to get this under control for me, and it is going to be all right. But I think when he goes back and looks at how bad that cut was, I don't even think if you had super glue, you were going to stop that bleeding, bro. It was just so bad.
Yeah. And I tell you, I don't, this is a loss for Tim Tszyu, and I don't want to say it's a loss with an asterisk because it takes away from Fundora. But listen, man, I mean, anything can happen. This goes back to, everybody talks about Floyd and how he didn't fight, and he fought cupcakes, or he did this or he did that. Listen, Floyd went in there 50 times or 49 times or whatever you want to call it, because I don't really count that his gimmick match with Conor a real fight. But, he went in there 49 times, right? Every night. And something has to go wrong for 12 rounds over 45, over 50 fights. Something's going to go wrong in there. You're going to get hit with a shot. You're going to get dropped. You're going to get cut. You're going to get fill in the blank, right? And he always was able to persevere through it. Whatever it was, he always won the fight. Always. And that's a huge deal. And then when you talk about Tim Tszyu and say, well, the cut did play a big role in it, blah, 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 you're right. But those guys find a way to win. That's the way it is, man.
Yeah, I understand.
And that's, and I'm not taking anything away from Tim Tszyu. I thought he fought a good fight. I thought he was courageous to go that 12 rounds with a cut like that. I think my fault lies more with the corner.
Yeah.
Seeing this and seeing that your man is compromised, it's not the same. What I thought about as soon as I thought that fourth round coming in, and I thought, wow, I wonder if they're going to stop it after this and say, hey, let's go to the cards or whatever the case may be. I thought of Terry Norris and Luis Santana. You remember those 3 fights that they had? And he was Terry Norris knocks out. I mean, he just manhandled Luis Santana in every one of those fights, by the way. And every one of them, Luis Santana won 2 of them. Why? Because he was hit like, maybe he got hit on the back of the head or something like that, but just, in a clinch or whatever, drops down like he's shot, refuses to move or get up. They stop the fight. It's a disqualification because it's, I'm sure he could have gotten up. It looked like he could have gotten up. Everybody said so. They go to the second fight. He does the exact same thing, and that is like, because I believe his corner was telling him even stay down, if I remember it properly, and it's been a long time. But I think that's the thing, like, you got to know, like, that corner, they obviously knew the rules. I don't know that Tszyu's corner actually knew the rules here, or were they too excited about the fight, too whatever about the fight, we talk about this all the time, babe. Your corner has to be your advocate. The corner is your advocate. You know what I mean? It's kind of like your attorney in a lot of ways, where they tell you what to say, what to do, what not to do. You listen to us. That's what we pay you for. I pay you, so and you give me advice, and I follow that advice to the letter. And the same thing with a trainer. You tell me the game plan, and I'm supposed to follow that advice to the letter. If you tell me to stay down, I'm going to stay down. If you tell me we're going to stop the fight and this is what's going to happen, yeah, then we gotta trust our corner. But none of that even played a role here.
Yeah, and it's as simple as this. And it is simple. I'm not oversimplifying. It's as simple as this. Anyone from that corner or Tim Tszyu himself says to that referee, I cannot see.
Magic words. Those are the magic words.
That fight is over.
Those are the magic words.
I can't. Even if the corner says it and says, listen, he won't admit it, but he can't see. He's prideful. He doesn't want to stop, but it's evident we can't stop this bleeding. There's nothing we can do, and he can't see. He just can't see, and he can't fight this way. That fight is over. But nobody even there wasn't even a discussion like, hey, listen, Tim, this cut's bad, bro. I don't think we can stop it. Tim, this is going too much into your eyes. I don't think this is smart for you. Like, there wasn't even a fucking conversation. And again, no. It's easy to Monday morning quarterback. And I'm going to say something else. I'm going to go back to another example. This is a UFC example where John Jones was supposed to fight Dan Henderson back in 2012, I believe. Yeah. And Dan Henderson had to pull out, I think, due to an injury. And then they were going to bring Chael Sonnen in on a week's notice. And obviously on paper, you're saying, oh, whatever, with all due respect to Chael Sonnen, John Jones will blow him out of there. It's an easy fight, blah, blah, easy money, easy payday. But John Jones and his team said, hey, listen, no, we're not taking this fight now. We'll take the fight, but postpone it later down the road or whatever, right? And that was a smart move, right? In this situation, Bokaczak was supposed to be fighting Fundora, and Tim Tszyu obviously was supposed to be fighting Keith Thurman. Now, we know that even Fundora had a short notice, too, because his opponents was switched up. But Tim, as we said before, I think you and I talked about this, me and D-Style talked about this, Bokaczak was a more similar opponent to Tim Tszyu than Fundora was to Keith Thurman. Like, Fundora had to make less of an adjustment here. It was very clear, right? Yeah. I don't think anyone will disagree with that. So not only are you fighting a southpaw while you were preparing for an orthodox, but you're fighting a guy that 6'6", as opposed to like 5'7". Like, the amount of change that you had to deal with and the amount of change and preparation that you had to do as opposed to what Fundora had to do was leaps and bounds so much differently. So even if you're going to take this fight, why don't you postpone it? And why don't you take this card, take Tim Tszyu off this card, make this a regular Amazon Prime card. Don't put it on pay-per-view. Maybe make Fundora versus Bokaczak the main event, or even put Cruz versus Romero as the main event and make Bokaczak versus Fundora as the co-main, and just put this on regular. And then you have Tim Tszyu fight the winner of Bokaczak versus Fundora down down the road, or even put the winner of that fight on, or even pull Fundora off the card too, and then put Fundora and Tszyu on the Canelo undercard of Canelo's fight with Munguia. There's so many things you could have done here, but to have this type of opponent change with a week to go, how do you prepare and do a complete 360 in preparation and take on a Fundora? I'm going to be honest. Even that, if I was managing Tim Tszyu, I wouldn't have taken that fight with a week's notice. I just wouldn't. I would have tried to postpone it somehow, some way. That's just my opinion on that.
Well, and we talk a lot about what Tszyu had to adjust and everything, but let's talk about what Fundora had to adjust, all right? Because he can't fight Tszyu the same way he was going to fight Bokaczak. He can't fight the same way. And we saw a Fundora last night that we'd never seen before. This guy used his jab. He used his distance. He controlled the space. He controlled the movement. He did everything correct. Even in the first 2 rounds, he was still landing jabs and everything. And you could see that Tszyu was having trouble connecting as far as like getting the range down. Now, I thought Tszyu, again, won the first 2 rounds. I thought he was at the end of that second round. I thought for sure he had the range and he was going to put this guy away. It just looked like it because he had shook him a couple of times. But that being said, the cut happened and they told him in the corner, keep jabbing, keep the jab working, keep him at distance. And that is something he's not used to doing. He's not used to fighting like that. He's used to getting in there and inside, mixing it up and everything like that. And he had to adjust his way. So I see what you're saying because he's a tall guy. All the fighters he fights are going to be about the same size. They're not going to be his size, right? And it's definitely different fighting, Tim Tszyu versus Boric. I get that. But he had to make some big adjustments too. And that adjustment in the style that he did, last night that we've never seen him really utilize. You may have seen it for 1 or 2 rounds, but you don't see it over the course of the fight. The discipline he showed, that short of a time range, 1 week.
Yeah.
One week to put all that together. That was amazing.
I understand what you're saying. And I'll just give you my opinion. Maybe Fundora always could have fought that way, but just chose not to because he always wanted to be aggressive.
Absolutely. Right? And that's and he said as much.
Yeah. So we'll take that one. And I'll go back to my other point. I understand. Yeah, of course he had to make adjustments. Yeah. But Bokachek and Tim Tszyu are both mid-range to inside fighters. They're both aggressive, offensive-minded, come-forward fighters. They're not identical, don't get me wrong, but they are similar in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And yes, I still will go back to, yes, of course he has to make adjustments, no doubt, because he's stepping up. Tim Tszyu, with all due respect, is a better fighter than Bokachek, in my opinion. I think that's clear. So he had to adjust because he was going up a level. But in terms of the preparation, I still think he was going to do the same thing that Bokachek, try to fight him on the outside as well, similar to what he did to Tszyu in this fight. So I don't think the game plan would have been that much different in my opinion. I could be wrong.
I get you. I mean, I get you. Now listen. Now, while Fundora had to make those changes, clearly, Tszyu had the bigger changes to make.
Yes.
You know what I mean? No question about that. I mean, what changes would be more difficult? Clearly Tszyu. Clearly.
Correct.
But like I said, man, Fundora had to make some changes too, especially with a guy this dangerous, And I was really impressed, man. I was really impressed with his performance. And I picked Tim Tszyu to win, but as that fight goes on, I'm like, man, he might do this. I'm thinking to myself, wow, he might do this, man. Fundora could get this, man. Yeah. And when he did it, you were just happy for him, man, because it was just like.
And again, I apologize to Fundora's team. I really do, because it's not his fault. These circumstances had nothing to do with anything he did. Oh. He didn't even really cause the cut. It was Tim Tszyu that initiated the contact.
Absolutely, so it was accidental.
Nothing he did.
But
yes, nothing he did really contributed to this. None of this was his fault. And here's another component to add to this. When you see a wounded animal in there like that, it's hard to restrain yourself from not wanting to go balls to the wall. Because of seeing that blood, he could have easily reverted back to the phone booth version of Fundora.
Oh, for sure.
And he still didn't do that. So we'll give him another layer of credit because of that. Right. So I agree. I apologize because it seems like I'm shitting on him and his team. And that's not what I'm trying to do here. This is more about Tim Tszyu's team. How do you allow this to happen? There's you virtually sent him out there with a blindfold on, fighting a guy like Fundora, who already presented enough challenges.
Yeah.
I just thought it was utterly ridiculous
to
do that. I just don't, I can't wrap my head around it.
Listen, for Tim Tszyu to do that, I have no problem with it. I'll be honest with you. I have no problem with Tim Tszyu going out there with a cut, bleeding, and everything like that, and wanting to get up and go out to the next round. That's his job. That's what he's supposed to do. That's how he's supposed to feel. But I do, however, blame his corner
100%
for not putting the brakes on that.
100%.
And for saying, hey, again, Your corner is supposed to be your advocate. You're not the boss in there. They are the boss in there. You know, they tell you what to do, when to do it, and how to do it, and you get it done, right? And that's what a good corner is supposed to be. And then the fact that they didn't have, you know, according to, you know, like I said, I mean, that no comment spoke volumes. You know, the no comment about the cut man and everything like that spoke volumes. So yeah, man, this is that's a big one. That's a big one on this corner. And I'll be real curious to see how that goes, if who gets fired or if there's any fallout from this.
Yeah, that'd be
cut man clearly should be fired, but you know, and I don't understand. Maybe he was busy that night, but you got Stitch Duran out there, the best corner man, the best cut man in the business, you know, right now. You know, there's a bunch of really good cut men, you know. Basil's
a good, he's a good one. Basil and Stitch are the two best.
By far, man. So that's the thing, man. You gotta, you know, it's tough, man. But it makes you, I tell you, it makes me appreciate MMA just that much more, because again, he got caught coming in with the elbow, and that was just, he was coming in and it hit, you know, and he was just protecting himself. In MMA, when they're throwing those elbows and they slice you open like that, man, that's not fun. You know, that those elbows hurt, man.
There used to be a guy back in the old school days of the UFC. I think his name was Gail Goodridge. And Gary Goodridge. Was it Gary Goodridge? Okay, thank you.
Gary Goodridge, yeah.
Gary Goodridge. And this dude would just like use that freaking elbow like a sickle. Like, wow. He'd get guys on the ground and he'd be like, pa, 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 pa. And I would be like, damn, he's gonna fucking kill somebody. And I'm glad, you know, and I'm kind of glad they changed that rule, that elbow rule they have there in the UFC. I guess you can't elbow a grounded opponent.
12 to 6. There is no 12 to 6 elbows.
Meaning it can't be like this or something.
Yeah, no 12 to 6. They call it a 12 to 6 elbow. Elbows are legal, but you can't have a 12 to 6 elbow. And you know what this
comes down like this.
And you know what this stems from? This stems from the karate. Remember the karate demos where they used to break all the bricks with the elbow with a 12 to 6 elbow, and that's where that rule originated from.
Yeah,
but it's a silly rule. It really is a silly rule. If he can elbow, why can't I do a 12 to 6? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah,
doesn't make any sense, man.
I wouldn't be surprised if somewhere down the line they actually make elbows illegal across the board in the UFC. And you know what's funny? You don't see them very often anymore. You just don't see them as much as you used to. Back in the old days, you would see so many of them. And I guess the reason being is when you have a guy on the ground, right? Instead of hammer fisting him, it's much more efficient to just go like this, right?
Yeah, because, and just drop that elbow. And when you're down there, your hand fighting anyway. So when you got somebody in the mount position or even side, typically it's in the mount. And so there's a lot of hand fighting that goes in with that, you know, when you're on there. And when they grab your wrist, which they'll grab your wrist or your hand and they'll, you know, grip it. And then what's left?
The elbows.
Boom.
Yeah.
You know, so as soon as they grab that wrist, that's when you see them go to the elbows.
Yeah.
And
even in a street fight, if you're going at someone and someone just like wraps their arms around you, you're like this. Mm-hmm. If you want to get out of that, you just go like that. Like you just boom like that. You're not going to sit there and try to wrestle with them. The first thing you do is you just instinctively you just go like that. Right, to get them off you. So
yeah, that's the thing. And you want to create space and you know, yeah. So I'd say, yeah, Reese Mack said, I guess they think 12 to 6 more. Again, that came from the old, like I said, they talked about those karate demonstrations where they're breaking all those bricks or whatever, and then they deem that to be an illegal move because it's so powerful or whatever reason they did. But the other elbows are much, much worse. You know, incidentally, that's how John Jones got his only loss, with a 12 to 6 elbow against Matt Hamill. So a disqualification. So there you go. Dale Dillard says Tszyu wins easily without the cut. I got to agree with you. I think he does. I think he was winning. I mean, I think he was winning those first 2 rounds like easy, and he was catching him. But we'll never know.
First 2 rounds were not even competitive, in my opinion. He was teeing off on him.
Yeah,
he was teeing off on him.
Yeah, they weren't that competitive. And you know what surprised me is you know, as close as I had it 115, 113. You had it 115, 113 as well, didn't you?
I did.
Yeah. that it was that close still, because Tszyu was still banking rounds at times,
That's all you need to
it was a
know.
dog's fight, man.
That's all you need to know. One judge had him winning, and another judge had it 115 and 113. So even with those extenuating circumstances, his fight was razor fucking close.
Oh, yeah.
So again, take away those circumstances. How does this fight play out? Again, we can only speculate, but the empirical data, there's enough circumstantial evidence to tell us that if there's a rematch and he doesn't get elbowed again, then he probably wins clearly.
And if there's any doubt about that, I said, you just listen to what the managers and promoters say after the fight, and
they're not fighting. They're not fighting him now.
They're not fighting that dude again. No way.
We have a verbal agreement. What the fuck does that mean? We have a verbal agreement. We were
talking about this. Even if you had a signed agreement, doesn't mean anything, because he'll drop that belt and he won't fight him again.
And they'll freeze him out. They'll freeze him out. Yeah, they'll all these rematch clauses have time limits on them, right? They have expiration dates and shit on them. They'll just fucking freeze them out.
Yeah.
They'll say, okay, yeah, we're gonna fight Errol Spence in 8 months. You know what I mean? Like most of these rematch clauses, like I said, have these time limits on them, these expiration dates, and they'll probably just Tim Tszyu is gonna get frozen out.
Oh, for sure he will.
And this is why, again, like, oh, well, he worked with PBC before. Like, they're not going to go out of their way to do him any favors.
Right.
They have a much better relationship with Sebastian Fundora and Errol Spence than they do Tim Tszyu. Let's put it that way.
Or Terence Crawford as well, who fights for the PBC.
Yeah, Terence Crawford's going to be the money man. Now, one good thing out of this could happen, if and this is a scenario that could possibly play out, is say Spence and Fundora do fight next, and then they get stripped of Fundora gets stripped of the WBO title. If Crawford and Tim Tszyu fight for the vacant WBO title next, that would be good. But once again, you're going to be at the mercy of Terence Crawford in the negotiations there, and it's a tougher fight. And you're going to go into the fight beltless. Whereas if you went into the fight with a belt, you'd have a little bit more leverage and you probably would have made a little bit more money going in than you would have without the belt.
Yeah.
So now, obviously, you probably would have taken the smaller share, but now your share gets even smaller because you're going into that fight without a belt. So either way, no matter what happens, even if you do fight Crawford next, because of the way that everything played out, you're going to end up losing money in the long run. At least in the short term, in my opinion.
For sure. Were you surprised when Errol Spence got in the ring?
Not really, because I know how these guys move over to PBC.
Yeah.
Once I knew that he was going to be there, I said to myself, there's a chance he may jump in the ring after the fight, because they did say he was going to fight the winner.
Yeah. So here it is, the WBO rankings as of this month. Champion Tim Tszyu, now the champion is Sebastian Fundora. Number one contender is Josh Kelly, right? Mm-hmm. Josh Kelly is the number one contender, along with Erickson Lubin. So what does that mean exactly? Well, it means that Josh Kelly and Terence Crawford could be, once that belt is vacated, and it will be vacated, Josh Kelly and Terence Crawford would be for the title, because they take their number one, their mandatories. Terence Crawford already a guaranteed mandatory because he's going to move up in weight, already guaranteed with that WBO belt. When he moves up in weight, he's number one. Then you have Josh Kelly
and Erickson Lubin's number two. But again, the WBO could put Tim Tszyu as their number one contender based on how close this fight was or whatever.
They could, but they probably won't.
Yeah, because either way.
And if I'm Tim Tszyu, do you fight Terence Crawford, without a belt? And I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, Tim Tszyu wants to fight everybody. I get that. But,
Crawford's going to make this is the argument now. Does Terence Crawford make just as much money fighting Josh Kelly as he does Tim Tszyu? Probably
mandatory.
Probably comparable money, right? Because again, no disrespect to Tim Tszyu, but he's not a huge name over here, right?
No, but let's say you take that fight to Australia. Becomes a lot more marketable there. Pay-per-view, numbers, money, all that stuff goes up. No?
Tim Tszyu's fights are always going to be on Australian pay-per-view regardless. So no matter where he fights, he's always going to have that pay-per-view revenue over there. Problem is, does Terence Crawford get a piece of that? That's the thing.
Yeah.
If you were to say if you're Terence Crawford, right? And you just say, okay, you want to fight, you want to fight me, whatever, you want to make this deal, right? Then I need to get a piece of the Australian pay-per-view in order to make this. I want 50-50 on everything.
Yeah.
We'll see if that becomes part of the deal. Who knows? Who knows what could happen here?
Thank you so much. The Boxing Historian 206. Thank you very much. He said overhyped PBC fighters don't want Crawford. He's right. They don't.
I don't disagree with that.
I don't disagree with it at all. Grant G said Spence was looking like a cruiserweight last night.
He was.
Him and Danny Garcia looked like they put on quite a bit of weight.
Yes.
Yeah. So, it's never good to blow up between fights.
You could tell who the guys are that stay in the gym and who don't. Like even Andre Ward's been retired for years. He still looks
great, man. Still looks sharp. Yeah.
Lloyd still looks great. Terence Crawford, every time he's at an event, he looks great. But you could tell the other guys who like to have fun in between fights. Danny Garcia is definitely one of them, and so is Errol Spence.
Why is Danny Garcia still fighting? I think that's my I look at him and he
loves to talk about how he's doing so great in the stock market and great. I'm happy for you. He loves to talk about how he's doing great with real estate. He loves to talk about how he's doing great with his music and his businesses and this and that. So once you start talking about that stuff more so than you're talking about your actual boxing, then
you're already on the way out.
You got one foot out, right? You got one foot out.
And listen, man, if business is so great, I'm just saying, why are you looking for another shot here?
Yeah.
Why are you looking to get back in the ring?
Yeah, this isn't something you do if you don't have to do it. Very few people do this if they don't have to.
If George Foreman would have had those grills prior to his second comeback, there would have been no comeback.
There would have been no comeback.
No comeback.
Nope.
You only fight for really one. You're not fighting for the love of the sport. You know what I mean? You're not, because it's dangerous. It's a dangerous thing to get in there with somebody who's going to take your head off. The only reason you get back in there is because you need the money.
And you know what baffles me is the amount of loyalty some of these fighters show the PBC, even after being shelved for so long. Like Danny Garcia, like what are you doing? Why don't you go fight a guy like Conor Benn or something, bro? Like if they're putting you on the shelf that long and they're telling you, oh yeah, you're gonna fight Irslandi Lara, and then they pull you out and they put Zafara in there or whatever. I don't know if Zafara was the mandatory, whatever. I can't remember the whole circumstances with that. I'm gonna have to refresh my memory and do some research on that. But if they can't get you fights, then why stay with them? Like Matthias left, right? So, other fighters, like I think Deontay Wilder may have left as well. Why are these guys still staying there, a lot of them, if they're not getting fights? I don't understand it. It baffles the mind.
I don't get it either. I don't get it. I really don't, man. So just to wrap up here for this fight, you think that he fights Errol Spence next? Or not Tszyu, but Fundora.
Fundora will get stripped of his WBO title, and he will be fighting Errol Spence exclusively for the WBC junior middleweight title. Yes, and Terence Crawford will end up fighting for that vacant WBO belt. In my opinion, I
think so too. And I think he's going to fight Josh Kelly for it, but it would be interesting. It would be interesting. And if the IBF or if the WBO, I guess, has any respect here, they could potentially put Tszyu at at that, mandatory as well. But I wouldn't think they'll do that.
It wouldn't shock me if they did, but again, I'm not 100% sure they do. I don't know if they do that or not. Because again, Tim Tszyu doesn't have any stroke. Like if Tim Tszyu was a PBC fighter or somebody, or if he was a top ranked fighter, he may have some stroke here, some leverage here. But because he's on the outside looking in, I don't know if the WBO, I don't know if anybody is going to go out of their way to do Tim Tszyu and his team any favors. I just don't. I don't
think so. Go Flow says, don't contradict yourselves, because if they supposed to fight for money, then don't complain about the business. Well, the thing is, like, we cover everything from all different angles.
Who's complaining?
We're every angle, man. That's the thing.
We're not complaining. Like we're gonna.
Yeah, I don't care.
We're not emotionally vested in this. I mean,
right?
I don't get a cut of anything. I don't give a fuck what happens. I'm just telling you what is. I'm just telling you what is going to happen because I say there's world hunger out there. Does that mean I'm condoning it? And I'm like, yeah. I'm just making an observation, making an observational, factual statement.
Yeah.
That's all.
And we got to cover it from every angle. You have to cover the business angle. You also have to cover it from the fighter angles too, and the fan angles. So you have to cover it from all those different perspectives.
Yeah.
I guess you don't have to, but we do.
If you're a respectable analyst, you do, and we're respectable analysts, and that's why we do it. You have to put two and two together. Let's not be naive here. Errol Spence was in that ring yesterday, okay, and he was there for a reason. And you also, if you watch the post-fight press conference, you heard Sampson say, "We are going to do what's best for the fighter financially." And if fighting Errol Spence is the best for the fighter financially, then obviously that's the best possible scenario for Sebastian Fundora, because it's a much easier fight than the Terence Crawford fight. That's number one. Number two, Errol Spence, you can argue, would still be the A side there, but he doesn't have the belt going in. So you could argue that he may get 50-50.
Clearly the A side. Spence clearly the A side.
You could argue that he could get 60-40 with Spence, or maybe even 55, like Spence is 55-45, whatever. He gets a bigger chunk of the pie fighting Errol Spence than he does Terence Crawford, because Terence Crawford's gonna want a lot more money than Errol Spence is gonna want,
right,
because and he's in a position to be able to ask for it more so than Errol Spence is right now, coming off a knockout loss and moving up in weight, right?
Yeah.
So it's a much better fight for Fundora in terms of risk reward and in terms of money. He'll probably get more money fighting Spence than he would fighting Terence Crawford, because of the split.
For sure. And you know what? I mean, given the fact that he's a champion now, he can dictate his own. He can dictate 50-50, because Errol's coming up. And you know what I mean? Errol's coming up. Errol just come off a loss. And listen, I don't have to give you a shot. I can go fight Crawford.
Yeah, you're a voluntary.
Tszyu again.
You're a voluntary. You're a voluntary. You're not a mandatory. So right. So you have a bigger name than me. That's true. That's great. But if you want this belt, we're going 50-50, or we're not going at all.
Right.
Can't say that to Terence Crawford.
No.
Can't say that to Terence Crawford.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let's talk about this co-main, man. Rolly Romero versus Isaac Cruz Romero's for Romero's WBA junior welterweight title. I bet on right now, obviously, I don't bet like $100 or anything. I just bet very, very small. I bet on Rolly Romero to win this fight because of the way Isaac Cruz has looked in his last couple of fights. He's looked like dog water, right? He's looked awful. Not in this one, man. I'll tell you what, Isaac Cruz smashed Rolly Romero with an 8th round TKO. At no point was Rolly ever in this fight. I mean, he looked awful. From start to finish, he just was smashed. This is the best I've ever seen Cruz look. That includes the tank fights. He needed this fight and needed to look like this in this fight. After 2 lackluster fights, this more than made up for it. And now I'd like to see Cruz again. After those last 2 fights, I couldn't care if I saw Cruz ever, but this fight, and I tell you, Rolly, I don't know what he was doing. I don't know. He just looked awful. He looked completely awful.
He looked out of it.
Yeah. I don't know what he was doing, or
I actually felt bad for him at the post-fight interview because he looked like he was like out of it. He looked like he was possibly concussed. He still didn't have his faculties
Yeah.
With him at that point in time. He was out of it, right? And then Jordan Plant's trying to ask him these questions. She's sitting there.
Oh, she's terrible, dude.
She's sitting there saying to him, "Oh, you said you were going to do this. You said you were going to do that. What happened? What happened? Like,
he got hit. That's what happened.
Is this really the time to go down that road of?
You know why? Because she was in there before the fight, and he really wasn't paying her any attention. When she was asking, he was like, "We're going to hit him."
Yeah, she was offended. It seemed like she was offended the way he answered her questions in the locker room pre-fight, and now she's like, "Oh, what about now? You said you're going to." And full credit and class to give him. Showed a lot of class at the end of that interview. He says, "I just want to wish everyone a happy Easter." So
what else can you say?
I'm not going to sit here and go back and forth with you, man.
Right. What else can you say, man? I mean, really, what else can you say? Yeah, I don't, and she doesn't do a great job, like I said, with those off the cuff interviews. Yeah. You know what I mean? And when we got to talk and you don't have a script in front of you, she's not very good, Claudia who was the other one? Claudia Trejos was the one last night.
She's really good. I like her.
Was she wearing a shirt or just a bra last night? I mean, everything was wide open. And
I was going to say to myself, damn, girl, you got to cover that shit up, man. This ain't freaking OnlyFans.
Right. We're not, I mean, this is, come on.
What are you doing here?
Show some class. You come out here like Butch Lewis or something,
You noticed that too, how revealing that dress was. That was like over the top, man. That was like cleavage from top to bottom here.
Right.
What are you doing, honey?
The way Jordan Plant, I do like Jordan Plant typically, because like her stuff is really good, but on the interviews like this, she's not very good. But you know why I also like Jordan Plant? Because she dresses professional. She looks like one of the announcers. You know what I mean? She's typically dressed in.
And her husband's a friend of the show, so we don't want to get him mad at us.
Listen, man, we love her husband. All right, so Caleb Plant's awesome.
Caleb, if you have a problem with anyone on this show, it's that guy. not me. All right. I'm just reading off a teleprompter here that he wrote, not me.
I want to say, Caleb, just real quick. I'm just echoing what Joe told me before the show. That's all I'm saying. All right. I'm just parroting what Joe said.
Eric is the producer of this show. I take instructions from him. And I'm going to say something else off topic. I don't want to belabor the point. We know. Obviously, Claudia Trejos is bilingual. She can speak Spanish and English. But can you at least give her an interpreter? Because why should she have to translate her own questions and translate the answers as well? Like, why make her do double duty there? At least give her an interpreter so she doesn't have to do all that work during the interview. She's sitting there asking a question in English, then she has to repeat it in Spanish, and then he's got to translate his answer. It's like, what's going on with the budget here? Can you have like a fucking translator?
I mean, let's be honest though. We're not asking her to work in a coal mine. All right. I'm just asking her to ask some questions. That's it. I'm not asking her to go shovel some dirt or something like that.
Because of people like you, that's why we have unions. Because of people like you, that's why we have unions in this country.
It's not like it's hard duty out there where you just got to go and ask questions.
That's labor abuse.
You're not asking her to take down the ring.
What's next now? What are you going to have her be in the crowd selling hot dogs on top of doing the commentary?
What she does, it doesn't matter because she does, she does the boxing part-time. She does the OnlyFans part-time. She was on soap operas. I've seen it with my own two eyes. I've seen it. I've watched it.
Easy.
Best 10 minutes of my life, I'll tell you that. All right. So, Erislandy Lara versus Michael Zarafa for Lara's WBA middleweight title. Lara wins by KO in the second round. I don't know.
There's not much here to talk about here.
No, I don't think so either. And Lara's still, he's 41. I get it. But his legs are gone. Is anybody going to admit his legs are gone? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, he's getting knockouts now. You know why he's getting knockouts? Because he's standing in front of guys because he can't move anymore. All right. ESPN. Oscar Valdez versus Liam Wilson. Valdez wins by a 7th round TKO. Anything here, Beeb?
Yeah, this is what I said going into the fight. I like both guys. I think both guys are good fighters. But the one thing I said was Oscar Valdez, to me, is the more durable of the two. And even though he gets hit at times, he still has a very underrated defense. He's got a very strong defensive construct, compact when he wants to be, rolls shots, partially blocks him. You can hit him, but it's hard to really hit him consecutively and hit him flush multiple times, right? He can be outboxed. We know this. He can be outmaneuvered by guys who have quick foot speed. But Liam Wilson did well when he kept this fight at a distance, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of times we say, oh, well, the guy had the wrong game plan. But then you and I a lot of times will say, well, was it really the wrong game plan, or was he forced to fight a certain way because of his opponent? In this instant, right, I'm going to be a hypocrite here. I'm going to say he did fight the wrong fight because it wasn't like Oscar Valdez changed anything he was doing. Liam Wilson was the one who was stepping forward and was going deeper in the pocket as this fight wore on. And he said this admittedly after the fight because he wanted the fight to be more exciting and he wanted to go for the knockout. And he was concerned even before the fight when he was asked about this. He said, I'm going to go for the knockout because I don't want to leave it in the judge's hands. So he made a decision to change tactics in this fight for a couple reasons, according to him. And asked at the end of the fight, he even said, I should have fought smarter. And so he was the one that took this fight at close range. He made the adjustment. He wasn't forced into making this adjustment because Valdez really wasn't doing anything different. Wilson was winning the fight, in my opinion, or at least doing well when he was fighting from the outside. But once he decided to jump in the phone booth, that's where things started to go south. So if you're going to go tit for tat with a guy like Valdez, this guy is very hard to knock out. He's hard to hurt. This is a guy that fought 12 rounds with a broken jaw. He's not going anywhere. You got to hit this guy with a baseball bat to get him out of there. So your best bet isn't trying to knock this guy out. Your best bet is trying to outwork, outmaneuver, and outbox this guy and try to pot shot him from the outside if you can, right? And so I'm just going to have to say this was the wrong game plan, and he wasn't forced into fighting this fight. He chose to fight this fight, in my opinion, and he admitted it. So it is what it is.
There you go. On the zone, Arsen Goulamirian versus Gilberto Zerto Ramirez. Ramirez wins a unanimous decision 118 to 110 or 118 to 110 on all three cards. Beeb, I didn't catch this fight. I'm not sure if you caught the fight, but
this was a very one-sided fight. Arsen Goulamirian is another guy, mid-range to inside, very strong guy. He's a clubber, a little wide with the shots. And, Ramirez, I think at this weight is going to be quicker than a lot of people, right? Mm-hmm. He was had decent speed at 168, decent speed at 175, but there were guys who were quicker, guys who were slicker, guys who could outmaneuver him at those weights. At cruiserweight, I think he's going to be the guy who is the slickster in this division. We've seen Ramirez fight at range. We've seen Ramirez fight inside. He's very capable all around. But in this fight, I did believe that his best bet was to keep it at range, keep it from the outside. And he was just pot shotting from the outside, picking Goulamirian apart, threading the needle down the middle. He was changing levels with his jab. I just thought that the way this fight played out, I thought it would play out this way. I just thought he would get off first. I thought he would land more from the outside. I just thought he would be the more accurate fighter and the more active fighter and the more precise fighter in this fight. And he most certainly was. It was like a 10-2 type fight. It was pretty much identical to my scorecard as well. I didn't think this fight was competitive at all, and I didn't think it would be competitive, with all due respect to Goulamirian. So great win for him, and shout out to him being the first Mexican ever cruiserweight champion. He made history last night.
He did it for us. Did it for his people. Tony Yayo says, Lorda, you need to talk about Ciencia Estrada and Yoka Valle fight. Women taking over. I didn't happen to catch that, but I will catch the replay on Brazzers. So there you go. Beeb, did you watch this fight?
I did, and
Yeah,
I thought that Estrada won this fight 6 rounds to 4. I thought it was a competitive fight. I thought Valle was putting on a lot of pressure. I thought Estrada was trying to be the counterpuncher here, and in large spots of the fight, she was successful at being the counterpuncher. But there were also points where, she was having problems with the pressure, with the physicality of Valle in this fight. I heard words like, Valle was outclassed because all 3 judges scored it 7 rounds to 3. I had it 6 to 4. But it was one of those fights where, even though you could argue, even if you did have it 7-3, each of those rounds that she won of the 7 were very competitive rounds. She had to fight hard to get those rounds. This was not someone outclassing somebody else. This was someone that had to fight for every second of the round to be able to win the round, at least in my opinion.
Yeah. Back when I asked you just a minute ago, when I said, did you see the fight? A simple yes or no would have done. We didn't need a big, long dissertation on this because it just...
But I'm not here for what you want.
Really?
I'm here for the audience.
I'm just saying. I said, did you see the fight? That was pretty much the end of the conversation.
I'm here for all those young women who look up to people like Valle and Estrada. All right.
Oh, I tell you, did you see the weigh-in? I did happen to see the weigh-in pictures. And, listen, man, I got a little interested in the weigh-in. I wasn't interested in the fight, but I got definitely interested in the weigh-in. I'm just, what'd I say? What'd I say wrong? What'd I say? What's the matter with you?
That girl Valle is very, very attractive. Like Seniesa Estrada
requested it, Lord.
Seniesa Estrada is a pretty woman, but that girl Valle is really, really cute. I like that girl. She's attractive. I don't want to get in trouble here, but I'm just being
clearly honest. She does things for money. So hey, why
not? Whoa!
Talk about boxing. What do you you were the one that took it somewhere it didn't need to be. That was messed up, babe. You know what? I want an apology. That's wrong. Completely wrong.
Please.
All right. Hey, let's go to the phone real quick here. We got 516 New York. You're live.
What's up, guys? It's Jesse. How's it going? Happy Easter.
Happy Easter.
Anybody who doesn't subscribe to Ringside Reporter, subscribe, and then you know when they're on early, and then you can call in early like I did.
That's right. That's right.
I was itching. I was itching for boxing, man, and I didn't really think that this Tszyu Fundora match was the match, but it turned out to be a great fight. Let me just say that, like, a great fight. I loved it. Now I do agree with both of you guys. Beeb, I think they should have. I think his corner should have said, "I can't see." Other people, I don't know. You guys remember Nate Campbell did that with Tim Bradley? He caught criticism over it. People have caught criticism over stuff like that too. So I guess Tim Tszyu is.
I forgot about that one, Jesse.
Quite a warrior mentality.
I forgot about that Nate Campbell situation.
That's
an even more accurate comparison. Thank you for that. I know Eric doesn't like to give you credit for being an astute listener, but I give you full credit. Eric doesn't give you the credit. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So I know Tim Tszyu has that warrior mentality. I could go on, throwback style fighter. Now, with that being said, I agree with Eric too that this is. In the 6th or 7th round, I was saying to myself, well, this is what true champions are made of right now. If he wins with the cut while wiping his eyes, it goes in the history books of like the adversity he pulled off. I mean, Floyd Mayweather had a broken rib in the first Castillo fight, and so it's just adversity and it's in the fight game. And even he said it at the end. He's like, look, I lost. Fights, stuff like this happens, and Now, so I agree with both you guys. I mean, Zoo kind of caught the short end of the stick because I think he would have won that fight without the cut, but the cut did happen, and he didn't. A verbal agreement is not going to go nowhere. It's going to be Fundora versus Spence. PBC said. And I know people. I read like in a group chat too that Spence didn't. Why is he jumping in the ring after catching a beatdown from Crawford, acting like he won? I mean, you got to realize that was all set up by PBC. PBC is like, hey, go in there. We're going to sell the fight between you two guys. Now, it's interesting enough. I think Fundora could beat Spence. If he uses that advantage of the jab and his length, and I think Fundora has a way better shot at beating Spence than he does at beating Crawford. So Fundora versus Spence. I mean, I'm actually interested in the fight. I would like to know what you guys think about that fight. And and Jordan Plant. I mean, you just got the crap beat out of you. Why didn't you beat the guy? It's basically our question, and it's like, I lost the fight. Like this, like, but you said you were going to win. Like, I don't know what kind of childhood interview is that. I mean, we need Joe Habib up there asking the real question. We need Joe Habib in the post-fight interviews, showing these fighters the respect they deserve. If you want to see great interviews, you go to Ringside Reporter and you see Beeb interviewing all these boxers. And, they always take away great from him because he's the best at what he does.
Thank you, brother.
Happy Easter, guys.
And I want to let everybody know that I did not pay him to say that.
I think it's pretty well noted that you've paid him to say that. You remember when was we had four guys on? It was me, you, and Jesse Rican, and we were trolling Nate Campbell.
Oh, that was hilarious! Oh, that was great.
That had to be the best show ever, man.
We had Lion Killer, Nate Campbell.
Yeah, that was it. That was it.
Myself,
Lion Killer.
You and did we have
Jesse Rican? Yeah, we had Jesse Rican on. Yeah, and because he was talking about the Jake Paul fight or something like that, and I was like, "Oh, that's a great point, Jesse."
I'm gonna be honest. I don't think Nate beats Jake Paul. He's too small and he's older. I don't think he beats Jake Paul.
Who? Nate Campbell?
Yeah.
Of course he doesn't beat Jake Paul. He's like 90. He's not beating Jake Paul. Are you kidding me? When's the last time he was in a ring?
I know.
Come on.
And
Stop it.
And I like Nate, but I don't think he beats Jake. I don't think he beats Jake Paul right now.
What's the matter with you? All right, let's talk about the upcoming fights here. Not a whole lot coming up here. Let's see here. Some people in the chat were talking about the Fabio Wardley fight. It's on Peacock today against Fraser Clark. 12 rounds for Wardley's British heavyweight title. April 6th on DAZN. Our only fight next weekend, Beeb. Richard Hitchens versus Gustavo Daniel Lemos. 12 rounds junior welterweights. Diego Pacheco versus Sean McCalman. Gao Yafai versus Agustin Moro Goto. This is on DAZN next week. This is what you pay $30 a month for, by the way. Yeah. I'm just saying. $30 a month for that load of whatever.
I'm going to sound like an asshole right now, but I canceled and I don't regret it for a second.
No.
I just don't.
I got rid of it a while ago. Yeah, I got rid of it a while ago. Not doing it, man.
I don't regret it for a second.
The quality that you put out, if you're going to charge $30 a month, the quality that you put out for that better be good. You better have at least one good fight a month along with other, other fights or whatever. But Omar Rodriguez says Nicholas Walters, the fight last weekend. Yeah, Nicholas Walters won a close decision. Yeah. I thought it was a fairly close decision. And listen, man, he's not the same guy.
He's not
the same guy.
And I don't think he ever will be.
No, and if he moves up, it ain't gonna matter. In competition or whatever, it's not gonna matter. He's not the same dude. He hasn't changed a thing, and he's not the same guy. Yep. So there we go. All right, let's get into our news and rumors here. Shakur Stevenson versus Artem Hartunian being finalized. Hartunian? Yeah, I'm gonna say Hartunian. I don't know. Being finalized for July 6th for Shakur's WBC lightweight title. Beeb, this isn't the fight we wanted to see. This isn't.
Well, again, according to Bob Arum, they did reach out to William Zepeda after William Zepeda beat Hughes a couple weeks ago, and William Zepeda did call out Shakur Stevenson, and Bob Arum said he called Oscar.
Yeah,
and Oscar said that Zepeda's not ready yet. So
right, all that nonsense he's talking.
What are we doing here? Like what's going on? Like again, is he looking to fight the winner? I have a feeling that Zepeda is going to fight the winner of Lomachenko versus Kambosos. When I believe it's going to be Lomachenko, and at this point they think Lomachenko is an easier fight than Stevenson is, right? You can argue that Stevenson.
I think that's very true. I don't think that he gets past Loma, though.
No.
You know,
well, you don't think Zepeda beats Loma? That's interesting. No. That's an interesting fight. I may favor Zepeda in that fight, to be frank, but it's a tough one. You can make an argument the other way without question. It's that close of a fight. I actually like Zepeda a lot. I would argue he could be the best of the bunch, maybe. I think his style presents a lot of problems for a lot of fighters, regardless. Like on any given night, I think he can beat anyone at 135. But when you got your promoter not believing that, then that's a problem.
Well, yeah,
that's a problem.
Again, man,
what does he know that we don't?
What does he know that we don't? Something that we don't, because again, for him to say that he's not ready for Shakur Stevenson, I mean, let's face facts here, man. If you thought he could beat him, he'd be in there.
Yeah, that's what I would think.
You know. Teofimo Lopez and Steve Claggett finalizing a June 29th date. Beeb, does that excite you, Steve Claggett and Teofimo Stevenson or Teofimo Lopez?
No, not at all.
Not even a little bit, right? No. Not even a little bit. Why is he wasting his time fighting this guy versus looking for a bigger fight?
I don't understand why, you can't be fighting a Matias or I don't know.
Yeah, I don't either.
Devin Haney, winner of this.
Winner,
why not fight? Why not try to fight an Isak Cruz? Why didn't you wait till the winner of this fight happened and you could have fought the winner of this fight that just happened at 140 last night?
Yeah.
Makes more sense to me, but what do I know?
Yeah. And finally, the big fight that was announced this week, Jesse Bam Rodriguez against Juan Francisco Estrada will be scheduled for June 29th. I think this is a good fight for Bam. I don't think it's a great fight for Estrada. I think Estrada... I don't think Estrada. I think Estrada is kind of on his last. He's definitely a shell. He's not going to beat Jesse. He's not going to beat Bam Rodriguez. No way. No way.
I don't think so.
No, Bam is the guy, man, right now. All right, guys, that'll do it for this edition of Ringside Reporter. As always, you can catch Joe Habib on X at jhabib1. Our YouTube channel is ringsidereporterlive.com. And you can find me on X at Ringside73. Happy Easter, everyone, and we will catch you at the normal time next week.